Okay, today I'd like to talk to you all about demons and my own personal experiences with these entities. Um, okay, it all started when I was my significant experience that I've had started when I was probably around 8 or 9 years old. Anywhere from 8 to 10, something like that, when I lived in an apartment with my family. And at night, I believe this only happened once or twice in this particular apartment where I used to live at with my family. This creature, when I was alone at night in my room, he would hiss loudly. It was actually, I would hear him outside of my house. He hissed a couple times, at the most, on 2 separate occasions. It sounded like someone breathing heavily and hissing like a snake, and that really scared me very much when I was a young boy. And luckily for me at that time, it only happened, like I said, twice. And I thought nothing of it after a while, because when something strange happens and it's not too significant, everyone seems to forget about it. So a couple years later, I moved into a house, a pretty decent house in this city called Hollywood in Florida, and I think things were okay there at first. Although I always had this eerie. There was always an eerie atmosphere to the whole house. It wasn't too intense, but at times it would get kind of eerie and spooky. And I think, I'm not exactly sure how it began in the second house, but I believe it has something to do with Ouija boards, because actually my sister at the time, she had brought in a Ouija board, and she was doing Ouija board by herself, and I even participated with her once or twice, or maybe just once. Anyway, yeah, we just, she mostly just would do it on her own, and nothing significant really happened. And then I had a crazy friend who was kind of out there, and we would just, he was into Satanism a little bit. Like, he would just say like that stuff. He would talk about those things as if it was cool, kind of an influence towards those kinds of things. And one time we had a little doll this big, and I hung it up. There were these hooks on my ceiling to hang certain things. Actually, they weren't specifically for anything that I knew of. Anyways, I hung up a doll by its neck, and shortly after that, I believe I started having my experiences. I'm not 100% certain if that was the trigger, but whatever was hanging around me in my previous home, my apartment, was still around me, even though I did not know it. And so, when I was around 12, up until the age of 16, I had this creature come into my house, and it would hiss, at night, and he was scared the daylights out of me, and I believe they like feeding on, because I was a very scared little boy, because I was always into paranormal, ghosts and aliens, and part of the reason is I believe the ghosts themselves, or the demons themselves, they plant a seed, because ever since I was a little boy, since I could think and be conscious of myself, I knew that there were spirits in my first home, which was in Peru, a country called Peru, and me and my sister, my older sister, would experience moving objects, moving doors. We would hear things, as well as my family members, like my mother, my aunt. They would tell me stories of things that happened to them over time. And anyways, like I was saying, I think they plant a seed of curiosity, and they kind of make you want to know about, look into demons and ghosts and all those kinds of things. And I believe it opens up some kind of connection, like when your mind is thinking about, and I think I've kind of veered off my point, or my subject, what I was trying to say, but just quickly, I just want to say that they make you tune into a certain frequency that allows them to further, infiltrate your life. And as well as, I guess I'll get into more of this later, but anyway, that I've known about ghosts since the beginning, or demons, or whatever, entities, whatever you want to call them. I don't want to just say, oh, they're demons, because, people say, oh, you believe in that Bible crap, and, and they're not real, you're crazy, but this is how it started. All my fascination with the ghosts and spirits, which I believe led me to being, haunted, and perhaps partially possessed or heavily influenced. Anyway, in my first home in America, that I had moved in when I was about 11, 12, we hung up the doll. I know I veered off quite a bit. I hung up the doll, and shortly after that, there was a hissing entity at my house. I mean, he didn't just. It might not sound that bad when I just say hissing entity, but it was very loud, and like it was a large creature, and it was during an awakened state. See, the thing is, I had a lot of sleep paralysis episodes, and a lot of people, people who don't believe, are like, oh, it's just a chemical imbalance, or it's just REM sleep, you just hallucinate and all this stuff. But the thing is, see, a lot of people just have the sleep paralysis, and they're not sure if it's really a demon or some entity, or if it's just all in their head. But I didn't only have the sleep paralysis, I had an entity who would visit my house before I would go to sleep, and I wasn't even on my bed. I wasn't trying to go to sleep yet. It was at night, midnight, even 11 o'clock, and it would hiss. It would probably do it like once or twice a week. Sometimes it would not do it for a while, but it would, sure enough, it would do it. It would come back and scare me. And this is why I believe in these things. I grew up with it. I grew up with spirits or demons or whatever, and then I got attacked by demons. The old hag syndrome. A lot of people wonder, is it real or is it not real? Are we crazy? We're hallucinating in our sleep. But it's not. They're not hallucinations. They're real. In most cases, well, I can't speak for everyone, but I think at least half the cases, the people that experience something evil, the old hag syndrome. Actually, more than half, or even all of them. I don't really know. But in my experience, it was 100% real. This hissing sound that I heard while I was awake, my sister heard it, but she acted like it wasn't a big deal. And to me, she's 3 years older than me. But when I was 12, and you're alone and you don't really have anyone to talk to. You're in this big room, and you don't have many friends, and you watch things about aliens, which is another thing. I think just being into aliens, looking into that stuff, opens up some kind of channel for demons to come get you, or to fuck with you. Anyway, my sister acted like it wasn't a big deal. She just told me, go back to sleep. So I mean, and she was a witness, because she heard it many times along with me. And my mother heard it one time. So I have those witnesses, to back me up. Because I know, I wasn't just me hearing things, but I was the prime target. Because I would get really scared, and I've read that the demons feed off of your energy. And that's what was going on. And so, yeah, I'm just checking my time here. So I had a demon haunting my house, and I mean it's kind of hard to just say to explain. Like, I can't really make you feel what I felt. The terror that I felt, and I guess I should elaborate more on my sleep paralysis episodes. A lot of people say most of the people that get sleep paralysis, the old hag, they sleep on their back, facing upward, and I'm a guy that sleeps on his tummy. So, but that didn't matter with the old hag or the demon, whatever. It would happen to me anyway. I would always sleep on my belly, and it didn't matter. It would get on top of me. I never saw it, but I did hear it, in a wakeful state, mind you. And sure enough, it would happen quite frequently, and it was very scary. You feel something heavy on top of you. you can barely breathe. It's like that. Like you barely make it. You're afraid you're gonna suffocate. And also, not always, but sometimes, especially in my last few episodes that I had in that house, I felt electricity. It feels like electricity going through my body, and like sounds that sounds like electricity also, like sparks flying, something like that. And I felt something like jabbing my side, like kind of like rotating, really strange, with like electricity. Like I've heard someone's videos say that it feels like they're being tased, and I believe, I mean, I've never been tased, but that's probably similar because it feels like electricity and it's kind of digging into your side. And I never heard it talk as far as I know, but I did hear it hissing. And what else was I gonna say? There's this one guy who said that there's a connection between his curiosity with UFOs and his sleep paralysis episodes, which I find interesting because around that time I was also into UFOs and I was watching shows on aliens and stuff, which this particular person was saying was demons, in his opinion. And I think there really is a connection between that because there might be some kind of energy somehow placed upon these programs, or just the idea of a demon, or specifically the aliens, that it might open up a gateway. I believe it most likely does. I've had experiences where me and my little sister, were talking about the paranormal for 2 days continuously. We were home alone, and we hear a noise in her room. We're in the kitchen. We hear a noise in her room, and we look over there. We think nothing of it. And 10 seconds later, and this couldn't have happened unless something did it with their hand or whatever, the tentacles. A few seconds later, after we heard the noise in her room, on top of our fridge there's cereal boxes, that we keep her cereal, and it tipped it over, like, as if someone was just tipping it over. Now there's no way that the cereal box could have tipped over on its own. It wasn't light. I mean, cereal boxes are not too heavy, but I mean, if it's empty, it might tip over. Actually, even if it's almost empty, it's not going to tip over the way that it did. It just, plopped down like that. So that freaked us out, and that's when I first started realizing that just talking about something like that opens you up to this whole world of entities and demons. When you are in that atmosphere, when your mind is in that, when you're in that mindset, it just opens you up, and I don't know. We need to find out a way to protect ourselves. And I guess one way would be to not talk about it. But I mean, I also feel that we need to know about these things so that we can better protect ourselves. But you just gotta be careful how we go about it, I guess. And even making this video is kind of spooky because, I have a feeling that when you talk about these things, they're all around you and they're watching you. And I've had many other experiences, just none of them were ever as bad as my experience when I was a child. And actually, and then I moved into this house. Well, actually, no way. First, what I think helped was actually going to church. I mean, I have a weird relationship with with religion, because sometimes I'm into it, sometimes I'm not. But at that time, I said, I'm going to church, and I had a friend, that had a church, and I went there. It must have been about 16, because I left my house when I was 16, or 15, 16, because I ended up moving at 16. But a few months or a year before that, even, I was already going to church. And after I went to church, something happened with my house where I had to move out. Now, I wasn't totally relieved because I knew that this entity would follow me from house to house. But I think just the fact that I got into religion and I started believing in Jesus. Now, I don't want to tell you that, oh, Jesus, I mean, I don't know for sure if it's Jesus. I'm just confused about that. Is it Jesus? Is he the right God? I don't know. Do we have to believe a God? All I know is that we need to be believing in something. And there are spirits. For those of you who don't believe any of this stuff, there really are spirits out there. It's crazy. I mean, there's as far as I can tell, there's lots of different types, potentially. And you know, demons and aliens may very well be demons. And yeah, so one important thing that I left out about my dreams: when I was 12, you know, the internet wasn't that, you know, wasn't as filled with information as it is now. Like, have you ever heard of shadow people? I haven't heard about that until I was already living here. I was like, you know, a lot older. And what the crazy thing is, one time this happened to me. I had a very weird dream or nightmare. I encountered this creature. It was a silhouette of a man. I was floating in my backyard in my dream, and I encountered, it was daylight in the dream, and I encountered this silhouette of a man wearing a coat. His face was black, and he was wearing a hat. And I just, you know, I floated in front of him because, you know, I don't know, that's just how my dream was. And I had this very intense feeling of darkness and just, I don't want to say evil. I'm guessing he is evil since he wants to suck my soul or something. But it's a very intense feeling of darkness and fear. And after that, my dream turned into something else. But that silhouette of that entity kind of left a mark because it was significant for me because it was the feeling around it. Something seemed real about it. And years later, I find out about the shadow man. A lot of people were seeing this shadow person who sure enough is a silhouette with a trench coat and a hat. And I think that's really, really strange. I mean, it's not a coincidence. Because just remember, at that time I had never heard of that stuff. Never. I mean, I knew about aliens and stuff like that, but the shadow man was not popular. I never heard about it. But I did see it, just the way that they describe nowadays. And yeah, so I believe that the shadow man is a demon. Or, well, I mean, some people might not like that term, but he's the demon. He's the one that comes to your house, and he has to do with the old hag syndrome. He has to do with that. And he's the same hissing entity, unless, of course, he has buddies. And I mean, it might not just be one demon, it could be lots of them. And they're just, you know, they go in groups. They all have their own, they all suck your energy. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in groups. You know, one guy's hissing at me while I'm awake, scaring the crap out of me. I can't sleep. I mean, this happened for several years. I'm lucky. And what's crazy is that my family, they believe me, but I don't know, they didn't really try to help me very much. I had to go to find help myself. And I give credit to the church. I mean, I know a lot of Christian people are hypocrites, and most of them are, if there is a heaven, they wouldn't be going to heaven. And right now, I don't see, even though I believe in all these spirits and spirit world, I don't really know if there is a heaven. Because there's so much information, you know, that contradicts itself. There's no way for, at least for me, to find out, because there's so much contradicting crap. The only thing that I know is what I've experienced. And all I know is that there are spirits and there are other dimensions. You know, we're not just our bodies. And I just want to let the unbelievers know that it is real. I'm not going to say go to Jesus or something, but I am going to tell you what did work for me, and that was, you know, going to church. I think that has something to do with it, because after that, I moved out and it stopped. I mean, I have experienced things, but never again that creature, and I hope to never experience it again. And you know, my whole family has seen things. In this house, the activity is very, very low. Inside the house particularly, it's very low, like I said. We had that cereal box that got knocked over. You know, as far as we know, very obvious activity. I've had things knocking on my window a couple of times. I had to call the cops, and they looked around. They're like, "No, can't find anything." I knew something messing with me. I also had I had a shadow. Now this has happened in the last 12 years, so it's not much. It's not that bad. I can live with that. I'd rather not, but it wasn't that terrifying. I had a shadow in my room. This is not my room, but I had a shadow in my room. Checking the time. I had a shadow in my room go. It flew around the corner, and I had to do a double take because I'm like, wait, what is that? And sure enough, it did it again. I'm like, what? That is weird. You know, I'm like, oh crap, it's a shadow man, because I knew by then it's a shadow creature. And also, I've had my dad, because he goes to work really early. He wakes up at 5. You know, when it's dark out there, he said he's actually seen the shadow man multiple times. He's seen it down the road flying. He saw it right in our driveway. He was smoking a cigarette in the morning. He was leaning on his car. And he said he felt something behind him. And sure enough, he turns around and there's the shadow man. And guess what? He's wearing a coat and a hat. And I believe he said he was short. He said he was about this tall, and I'm 5'8", so he must have been around the, I don't know, 5'4", 5'3", which is odd. Anyway, and then he said he started cursing at it, and then in front of his eyes, it disappeared. My little sister, she's walking to school. She usually doesn't go to school walking to her bus stop because it's kind of unsafe, from people around here. She saw a strange. First, she didn't know it was a shadow man. But it was a person walking back and forth the street, like just really strange. Like it wasn't really human. She couldn't tell what his face looked like. It was almost like he was gliding. She said. And she was looking at it, and then she turned around to see the people back there, which she acknowledged as real people. And then when she turned back, it was gone. So I mean, there's a lot of eyewitness accounts of from my family about this shadow man. I've never seen one in person other than that blob, but I did see him in my dream, and I know it wasn't just a dream because these creatures, they invade your dream, and they really make me want to believe there is a Jesus or something like that. And I don't know, if I really think about it, a lot of times I've hated Jesus, I hated religion, but I think even if Jesus is not real, there's got to be something there that's real. Because if there's not something that's real that is good, that can help us. Because if there's not, then we're screwed. Big time. And I really I hope that there is. And I call upon Jesus if I'm ever scared, even though sometimes I'm like, oh, he doesn't exist. Sometimes I just say, okay, the real God, the benevolent God that's out there, help me if something's happening to me. Or if I ever feel like I need help for some reason. I'm not ashamed to call Jesus if I'm being attacked by demons or spirits or whatever the hell they are. And I'm starting to think that the aliens and stuff are demons. And there's a lot of things that I'm starting to learn about. I mean, I'm just through speculation that everything on TV. I'm sure a lot of religious people have heard this, even though I don't think a lot of them take it seriously, because a lot of Christians, and I speak of Christians because I used to be around Christians, because my life's been, the religious people in my life have been Christians. So, I mean, a lot of them they act like, they go to church and then they act like, out of church they act like none of that stuff's real. Like, they just brush it off, which I think is very hypocritical, and they're not real Christians. I don't know if there is such a thing as a real Christian. But like I was gonna say, TV, music has an energy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, for a lot of you, this is not new. But music has energy. Symbols have energy, and somehow they open up doors, in my opinion, for entities to attack you and to attach themselves to you. So when you hear, if you're a young person and your parents are religious and they don't want you listening to certain music. Now, I've had friends that the parents, they throw away their music, and that just makes the children rebel and say, "Oh, my parents are idiots, stupid religious people." Now, granted, a lot of them are stupid. Well, I mean, not stupid, but they are very ignorant, and they're just very closed-minded. But not all of them, some of them, okay? I know I said a lot of them, but just some of them are. I think if you're young and your parents are doing that, I mean, even if they seem like they don't know it, I mean, I suggest for people to stay away from anything that's talks about any of the sins that are in the book, like lust, like sex, violence, drugs. All that stuff. I mean, I'm guilty of listening to all those, watching and doing all those things. I mean, not drugs or killing, but I mean, just watching, listening to rock and roll, all that stuff. I mean, that music, in my opinion, is really good music. But nowadays I'm reluctant to listen to it. And movies, scary movies. Just checking my time. Scary movies are, you know, it's a frequency. It puts your mind in some kind of frequency that. Just imagine like an empty space of, well, a vast space of energy, and your mind is pulling things in towards you. Bad things. And I know we don't want to, well, I don't want to listen to dorky Christian music. I mean, I don't necessarily, I don't know, I feel awkward saying I don't believe in Jesus, and I feel awkward saying that I do. I just don't know. All I know is that there's bad things. And if Jesus is out there, I'm sorry. You know, help me believe. I mean, maybe this is a way of helping me believe. I don't know. But I'm willing to accept Jesus in my life if he's there. Okay. Because I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to, if there's a hell, I don't want to go there. And it's not, I'm not just trying to be on the side out of fear. It's just because I know I'm not evil. And I know humans are not evil. I mean, I tell myself I hate, you know, people. They're all so rude and they don't ever get along. I have problems getting along with people. And if when I think about it, it's got to be these creatures that, you know, TV invades everyone's homes all the time. I mean, you know, day in and day out, music, everything, and it warps people's minds. It opens you up to demons. I mean, people think that if you're possessed by a demon, that, you know, it's going to be like The Exorcist. Like, it's an obvious thing. But I believe that most people are heavily influenced and controlled remotely. Like, you know, it's not that obvious. Like, people with addiction and, you know, addiction to anything, anger, money, all these things, they might be, I mean, I'm not saying for certain, but it's very likely, in my opinion, that these are all demonic influences. Because humans are supposed to, you know, we're supposed to be the stewards of the earth or whatever. We're supposed to be godlike. As far as how nice we are. Not in power, but we're supposed to take care of the earth. But we don't do that. We destroy each other. We destroy the environment and animals. And we weren't built that way, in my opinion. I think we're all just being corrupted by evil things. And so, I know this is a very long video, and I'm not a very good speaker. And I've never really, I never really expect people to want to listen to me because I'm just not very, my words, I've had problems because English is not my native language. And I've always had problems learning how to speak. And I can't articulate what I want to convey properly. It's just not fluent and to the point as a regular American. But I'm doing my best. And I think it's time I told the world about this. Well, you know, anyone that's interested. Because I think people should, you know a thing or two. Know an extra story, which is mine. And one other thing is that hissing entity, which is connected to all those, the Hat Man and the Old Hag. I've never ever heard of that hissing entity on the internet. As far as I can tell, I looked up a lot of stories about this stuff. I never heard anyone have any experience of a hissing creature. And if you've had an experience with similar to mine with a hissing creature, it's like he's in your house and he's hissing, like he's like in the corner of your room peeking and he's hissing at you. I would like for anyone who's had that experience, let me know and tell me what's happened to you, because I'm very curious about that. But let's not get too curious though, because we need to, I don't know, as people, as benevolent people, we need to be careful, you know, what we focus our minds into, you know, because like I said, you don't want to be thinking about these kinds of things all the time. I think that might be all for now. But if you have any interesting stories about the Old Hag or Shadow Man, you know, I'd like to hear them. And you know, I really hope there's a good power out there, because there is really a lot of bad. And I hope this never happens to me again. I mean, who would? And like I said, if you don't believe in this stuff, it's really real. And I'd rather that it wasn't real. I'm not crazy. And I guess, you know, try to be a good person and don't do evil things. And some people might say, you know, well, what's evil? Who dictates what's evil? Well, the stuff in the Bible, even though right now I don't know what to make of it. You know, the sins, you know, I should not kill. I mean, killing, even without the Bible, killing is bad. You shouldn't kill people, especially animals, because animals are they're like babies, in my opinion. Even a lion will tear you to shreds in a few seconds. They're like babies. They need to be taken care of by us. We gotta stop killing them. Killing is bad. Everyone knows that killing is bad. Stealing is bad. Anything that makes you, that if someone were to do to you, would feel pretty terrible. Those should be universal sins, despite of what the Bible says. Those main things, you know, cheating, lying, stealing, killing, all that stuff, you know, we shouldn't be doing. We should be helping each other. And I know it's hard to do that when I think everyone's being corrupted and possessed. You know, we just gotta do our best and keep our minds in goodness. And I try to do that, but you know, it's difficult. I mean, these demons are very aggressive, persistent. I think they're always with us, and I think there's a lot of them. Even right now in this room, there's probably a lot of them watching me because my mind's focused into this. And I don't know, pray about, if you're having problems, pray about this, because I know I'm going to pray. I rarely ever pray, only when I'm in trouble. And I guess it's time to shut this off because I've been talking for 30 minutes. Holy crap. Alright, well, take care of yourselves and be good so that good things hopefully happen to you. I know some good people who are considered good. Bad things still happen, but maybe they don't know how to protect themselves. And we all need to learn that and be in the right state of mind and think good thoughts and not indulge in evil things. So, thanks for watching. If you watched this far, thank you very much. For finding this interesting, because I sure find my story quite interesting. And I'm hoping to hear from other people their story. And that's it. I'm going to shut up now. Take care of yourself. Thank you very much. Goodbye.